Welcome to the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, where we bring you a weekly dose of powerlifting news, tips, and training advice with a touch of 80s rock ballads. This podcast is presented by Team Roar Powerlifting, your source of the most comprehensive coaching and meet day preparation. Here are your hosts, Josh Rohr and Laura Sturm.
So last week, I had a little error by way of omission when talking about the remaining Pro Series events, specifically for the Masters, but for Open as well. I was talking about the remaining meets being nationals for the Pro Series to get on the leaderboard, but I actually forgot to mention regionals. I think I mentioned it in a previous episode, but regionals and nationals are the remaining events to get on the Pro Series leaderboard. So I apologize for anybody that actually somebody contacted me about that. So somebody was listening and somebody was like, hey, that's wrong. So that's cool. That means people are understanding it a little more, which is great. So yes, nationals and regionals are the remaining events for the Masters. There's still the Open World Cup for the open lifters as well, plus regionals, plus nationals. So I figured we would go through the Masters World Cup that just happened. There were some implications with the Pro Series as predicted, and I figured we would kind of go through that. So we had in the women's Raw, we had 3 new pro card holders. They were the people that earned their pro card: Kathy Mealy, Janice Warner, and Tony Kemper. So Kathy had a 459 age dots, 459.09. I should be specific because Janice had a 459.00. So Kathy beat her out by 0.09, but yeah, that was a tight one there. And then Tony Kemper had a 456.5, and it's funny because she actually finished second in her weight class and age division, but she was 59, and I think her competitor was 50. So with the age coefficient, she actually placed higher by dots. So the Pro Series, she actually is ranked higher. So she slid into that 3rd spot for a pro card. So so with those updated rankings, Kathy's dots puts her at 5th place on the leaderboard. Janice is 6th place, and Tony is 7th place. So that restructures everything. So 10th, which is the cutoff for the finals, is now Heather Foss at 442.3. So that was pretty neat. Got 3 new people on the leaderboard there. On the women's equip side, we only had 1 lifter that earned a pro card. There were multiple female equipped, but only 1 hit the minimum dots. Nandi Zai had a 450.24, which puts her currently in 7th place on the leaderboard, and you got to get top 5 in the equipped to make it. Ann Whitmarsh also lifted. She had a 385, which bested her 381 from the Arnold. So she's currently in 8th place with that dots. So currently the number to beat in the women's equipped is still Cindy Goodrich at 486.77. The men's Raw was interesting. We had Ron Garofalo had a 524, earned his pro card, and actually jumped into 1st place on the leaderboard. Robin, let's see, how do I say this? Kensensius had a 485.98, which currently moves him into 6th place on the leaderboard. And he's actually from the Netherlands. So he's actually our first Masters lifter, non-US, to be ranked on the leaderboard. Matt Mucagrosso, he was already on the leaderboard in 11th place, but he upped his dots to 476 from his previous 468. So Matt Mucagrosso actually moved from 11th to 10th. And the current number to beat then to get into top 10 is Matt's 468.91. We also had, so that was the 3 people that earned or renewed their pro card. I know Matt also already had his pro card, so he renewed it. Ron and Robin, they earned it. And then Brian McMaster was also a pro card holder already that did not get top 3. So he had a 460.93 dots from Australia. That puts him in 15th place on the leaderboard. And Joe House was also a pro card holder. He had a 447, but he had previously done a 464 at the Arnold. So he's still in 14th place right now. Okay. So on the men's equip side, Gary Pamplin was already in first, and he had a 556 dots, but his original dots from the Arnold was 564, so he stays in first place. Um, Jeff Hughes was and David Villafranca also earned pro status. Jeff had a 531 dots, which moves him into second place on the leaderboard, and David Villafranca had a 478, which moves him into fifth place on the leaderboard. So the number to beat to get into the top five there is David's 478.93. Mark Daniel, Alan Crockover, and Ted Stewart were also pro card holders that competed. And Mark had a 470 dots, but he had previously a 481, so he stays in fourth place. Alan had a 457, which puts him in seventh. And then Ted Stewart had a 369, but previously had a 380, so he stays in eighth. So anyway, that was a mouthful. If people are not asleep after listening to my monotone voice, that is the current standings. Again, these were done quickly off the top of my head, so they could be wrong, but once we see the leaderboards get updated, I am pretty sure that is the correct standings after the Masters World Cup this past weekend.
That's pretty exciting. It's probably more exciting if you're one of those people that is competing for those top spots. I'm sure those people aren't asleep. I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's exciting. Like these numbers are fun to me. Like I love the strategy of it all. And I love that the leaderboard was already pretty tight with the people that were in the top 10 or top 5 for the equipped. And it's even tighter now because some of these people from the Masters World Cup jumped into the top 10 or top 5. So so regionals and nationals for the Masters are going to be very interesting to watch because there's still 2 more chances to get ranked in there. So so either way, I think we're going to see a very competitive finals in the Masters, probably more so than we have in the last 2 years. Looking at this,
cool. Well, Masters lifting, has a near and dear place in my heart.
Yes,
because I'm old.
Yes.
I'm not supposed to agree with that. Damn it.
You shouldn't.
You're old too.
You shouldn't bump set and just leave the spike there waiting to happen.
True. There you go. All right. Well, while you were ranting on that, ranting. I mean, you're always ranting, really. Let's just face it. I came up with a powerlifting situation and a new lifter tip.
Awesome.
Which would you like first?
Let's do the powerlifting situation. We haven't done one of those in a long time.
All right. Imagine, if you will, you've been competitively lifting for over 5 years. And now that your newbie gains are gone, your total has just been wavering around the same place for the last year. So you might go up with the squat, but down with the bench, up with the deadlift, down with the squat, but your total is pretty much around the same place for like the last year. What do you do?
Probably quit. I think your best days are behind you.
You're getting old, washed up, leave.
Yeah. No, so there's a couple things here. We don't know how old the lifter is, but I will say that it actually doesn't matter in this situation because if you've only been competitively lifting for 5 years, we can maybe assume you've been lifting for a year or two before that, before you were competitively lifting. So maybe say 7 years total. Yeah, the newbie gains obviously are kind of they've run dry. So I think at this point we would have to look at a lot of things. I mean, one, what did their training program look like? Are they just doing the same thing that they've been doing for the last 5 years with no changes or adaptations to it? What's their nutrition look like? You can, like I said, newbie gains, you can pretty much do just about, if you haven't really been lifting, you can do just about anything and get stronger. So, as you get closer to your genetic potential, you do have to become more specific with your training, more disciplined with your nutrition and recovery, things like that. So I don't think this is actually a very good one because a lot of people actually come to us at this point in time because, whether they're working with another coach or just doing their own training, they're just getting frustrated. And it really is just a matter of like really dissecting like what they've been doing versus where their weak points are versus where their deficiencies are, looking at their nutrition, all those things. And honestly, like if I had to be like brutally honest here, I feel like this person has probably just been complacent and lazy with their overall approach and been progressing. So why change it? Right. And now they're hitting that wall where, doing the bare minimum is no longer working. So it's time to get more specific, more detailed with your training, really put your nutrition and recovery under a microscope and say like, hey, all right, maybe I shouldn't be doing breakfast at Taco Bell every morning. Maybe I need, just things like that. That quite honestly probably was working when you first started because like you said, any lifting you're doing initially is still, probably going to get you stronger because you haven't been lifting before.
Right.
So the
Yeah,
gravy train
I
has run
agree.
out at this point. It's time to,
Yeah.
and quite honestly, like I was joking about the quitting part, but quite honestly, this is the point where a lot of people quit because it now becomes,
Hard.
so it becomes harder. It becomes more,
Mm.
I don't know if hard's the right word. It becomes more detail oriented with everything you have to do to keep
Mm.
progressing. And quite honestly, some people just don't want to put in that effort work. So,
Mm.
this is also the point where you go from being pretty good to great or from pretty good to washed up. It's the
Mm.
decision you got to make at that point.
Yep. I would agree. And you have to probably do something different to get different results.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's with everything.
Right.
If you keep doing the same thing, I mean, that's the definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing, expecting some different results. Well, that same thing worked for a long time, but now don't be washed up. Do
Don't
something
be
different.
washed up. Don't be like us. Well, I shouldn't even say that. Don't be like me.
I'm just going to leave that alone and not put myself into the washed up category, even though
Well, I
I
don't
don't,
think I,
I
I
just
don't
don't
think we
aspire to get back to the platform
well,
right now. So,
you are a little different in the fact that like you got to that very, very high level, stayed there for a while, and then rode off in the sunset, right? I'm
yeah.
not sure I ever fully got to my potential,
Mm.
but I'm also okay with that because like I had some injuries and then I also had like started the coaching business seriously, and that takes a lot. Like to
Yeah.
pour into other people all the time is it's hard to pour into yourself in that realm.
Yeah. To that extent, I agree. Yeah. It's like if you're a coach and you're a lifter, you can do one of those really well.
I think you can even do both really well. I think there are coaches that do both, but it's hard. And I just know like I know the extent of insanity and obsession that I had to put myself through to get to the point I was, to get beyond that. Like it really becomes the one and only thing in your life. And I was okay living that way for a while, but
Mm.
like it shouldn't be that
Yeah.
way. And that's what it had to be for me to get to that next level.
Right.
And it wasn't
Yeah.
worth it.
And I would totally agree with that. Like it was a I was going to say part-time job. No, it's a full-time job to try to compete at that level. It's everything you do. So at some point when you're like, oh, well, life, I have to have other priorities in life. Sometimes you just got to dial it back and be okay with that.
Yep.
There you go.
So there you go.
All right. So here's my new lifter tip. Are you ready?
Yep.
My new lifter tip would be to integrate single side training to work on some imbalances. So these would be movements like single arm dumbbell press or single leg squat. Agree or disagree, Joshua?
I definitely agree, but I think there's a time and a place for it. So if we're going into the last 4 weeks meet prep, like we can still do some of these a little bit, but like we're not necessarily trying to fix imbalances at this point. That should have already been done. So we're really ramping up for our best total. We're hitting heavier weights on the main lifts, and any assistance work we're doing is basically helping with the still are weak points of the main lifts, not necessarily imbalances. If we're still fixing imbalances at this point, and here's the thing, you're always going to have imbalances at this point. Still, like I don't think anybody's ever fully symmetrical, like ever. So when we're talking about this on a spectrum here, if we're going into a meet 4 weeks out and our main concern is still imbalances, it's probably not the best idea to be competing. Like we haven't done enough prep work. So in general though, assuming you're not within 4 weeks or even 8 weeks, I would say yes, 100%. We need to be doing this to build up not just imbalances, correcting imbalances, but just strength in general. It's, unilateral work is very important, and I think a lot of people neglect that.
I would agree with that as well.
Okay, well then I disagree. I think that no, I'm just kidding.
Well, I mean, I wrote the tip, so obviously I agree on it. But yeah, and I think to the extent on which you work on this does matter. If you're in, kind of, 16 weeks out versus 3 weeks out when you're trying to build muscle size and, address small imbalances, it's different than when you're gearing up and doing your last few weeks with heavy singles. But I think there's probably less unilateral work that's done than should be.
Yeah, I mean, you can even look at, let's just take a random example of somebody that competes twice a year. I mean, there's 52 weeks in a year, right? So what, 52 divided by 2, that's 26 weeks between meets, assuming you're doing them, evenly. And what we need, 12 to 18 weeks to really ramp up. I mean, 12 is pretty normal. So let's just say we do a 12-week cycle. That gives us 14 weeks to do what? I mean, we could literally spend 14 weeks doing unilateral work. Obviously not the same thing over and over, but like the point of that point in time outside of 12 weeks or outside of 18 weeks, whatever your cycle length is the time to get stronger, fix imbalances, do those things, which is going to help you lift more weight. But a lot of people just want to go right back into, squat, bench, deadlift training. And I'm not saying neglect that, but that really shouldn't be your priority. It should be these other things at that point.
Agree.
Cool. Well, that's all I have. I don't know about you.
I got nothing.
Oh, you know what? I think there was some new meets added to the Georgia calendar.
What are they, Josh Rohr?
Well, I guess we have a couple looks like popped up on the calendar. We do have a meet this weekend, the USA Powerlifting Anime Open. That's up in Alpharetta. Siraj and Kathy are running that, but that one's a weird one because I think it's a regular meet, but it's also they're doing like a what's it called, cosplay or something competition
As part of the powerlifting meet.
It's like afterwards, but there's like prizes for that as well.
Okay. Well, I didn't know that many powerlifters were into cosplay.
Yeah, apparently everybody's like stoked about it. I don't know what it is exactly.
Okay.
I don't even know if that's the right term, but people younger than me are very interested, and it's happening this weekend. So yeah. Anyway,
Okay.
the regionals are still coming up June 8th and 9th for Southeast Regional. There's still time to register, but that clock is ticking. So if you're planning on doing that, definitely sign up sooner than later. The new meets, the Savannah Coastal Clash was just added to the calendar. It's November 2nd in Savannah, Georgia. Tracy Cook is running that. Oh, the Georgia State meet for next year has just been added to the calendar.
Oh.
It looks like it's going to be in Duluth, Georgia, February 7th through 9th. So that's the 2025 Georgia State meet. Oh, which reminds me. Well, let me finish this real quick. So we already mentioned military nationals, police and firefighters next year, March 14th and 15th. Raw Nationals 2025 was added to the calendar June 26th to June 29th in Atlanta, Georgia. So
really?
It looks like Raw Nationals will be in Atlanta, Georgia next year.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. So that's crazy because collegiates was exactly 9 years after I ran it in Atlanta again. And it looks like Raw Nationals will be exactly 9 years after I ran it in Atlanta again. So
it's been that long.
It's been that long. It was 2016.
That's right. It was
that we hosted Raw Nationals in Atlanta.
I swear that was just a couple years
I know
ago.
it feels like yesterday.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I bet for you it really does because I would have been in a paid cave still, I think.
Yeah. I think maybe I still am. I don't know.
I think you are. You just don't know you are. You're in denial. Wow, that's exciting.
Yeah, it is exciting. But going back to the state meet. So one thing I wanted to throw out there is we are actively looking for new lifters in Georgia to join our team. specifically to lift at the Georgia State meet, because a lot of our lifters have actually progressed up where they're just competing at the national and pro series level. So that leaves us kind of thin at the local level. We have some lifters they're definitely going to make waves at the state level, but just sheer numbers, we don't quite have enough to really contend for the title. So open casting call, if you will, for lifters that are looking to take their lifting to the next level to join our team.
Yeah, because we got to get that state title back.
Yeah, man, got to get it back. But I've already had a bunch of people reach out because I did a little Instagram ad, which I was just playing around with. I actually got like quite a few people message me about it, but nobody is like committed yet. So the questions that keep coming back are like, what does this entail? Well, basically, we would coach you and kind of get you prepped for that. So like we still have a lot of time. So if you're not at that level where you feel like you're competitive, like we're still time to get competitive. So that's why we're kind of doing this right now, versus just like, a couple weeks before the meet, like, hey, you just want to lift for our team? Like, no, we want to like develop lifters and bring them in full force to make waves. So that takes time, and we have time. So if that pulls at your heartstrings, hit us up.
Yeah, nice. Do it.
All right. Now that's all I have.
Oh, that's it. Okay. All right. Well, Josh Rohr, until next time.
Until next time.
Bye now.
Bye now.
Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's episode of the Powerlifting and Power Ballads podcast, please remember to subscribe and share it with your friends.